Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Daily BizLink. Kathleen Gramzay is back for our Wednesday Wellness series. And today we're talking about resilient strategic planning for organizational well-being in 2022. So Kathleen, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So today we are really looking at resilience and how it impacts organizations from the strategic planning level. And really, it's like, why should owners, why should they care? Well, first and foremost, Cigna did a study of over 16,000 people in which they looked at different aspects of resilience. And according to that study, 60% of Americans are not high in resilience. And more importantly, work-wise, nearly 2/3 of full-time workers are at risk for not being able to handle challenges. That's a challenge right now, right, with what we got going on. So really resilience, we know it's become the word of the year, but really, why is it relevant? Well, less resilient workers have shown to have lower job satisfaction, which then translates to higher turnover. They have lower performance and professional ambition, which obviously could affect the long-term impact on a business. Weaker relationships and communities at work, as well as lower feelings of self-esteem and self-worth, and less ability to handle the impacts of COVID. So major issues. And really, especially since resilience is the ability to bounce back and move forward through challenges. So for business leaders, right, it really connects then or translates to this impact on greater human capital risk and then the overall greater risk on the business as a whole. Prior to COVID, most of us, right, most people, most employees, we handled normal stress and we were able to still be high functioning and be depended upon for that. And after 18 plus months of our nervous systems being conditioned to stay in survival mode where high function isn't accessible, right, we have a limited capacity, or our ability to be resilient is now diminished. So it's really very important, and resilience becomes that key component of being able to turn that tide. The two things, right, resilience and adaptability through change are the most important skill sets, in my opinion, for leaders and workforces. And the data is, in addition to my professional opinion, that data is showing that as well. So it's not only a skill set for people, but in essence, it really becomes a critical strategic planning consideration. And increasing resilience as a strategy is both smart than culturally, because it helps everybody, right? And fiscally, when you look at the impact of it overall.
So Kathleen, organizations or leaders here in the business community may be thinking, well, how do I know if my company is one of those organizations that's struggling with resilience? Based on what you've shared today, it kind of sounds as though, it could be just based on low levels of productivity or, morale within the office. Are there any other key indicators that you would encourage business leaders to identify and look at as like a trigger point for them needing to implement some of these new strategies?
Yeah, actually, that's the foundation of it, right? You have to know where you are in order to know how to go forward. And there are very specific surveys, right? There's very specific needs assessment that we can do that really help people to understand those key components of resilience, because those are the components that, when you measure them, translate to the other things that we were talking about. So the question then I would have, in addition to that, right, is what current resources are you providing your folks as far as resilience? And then what steps are you taking to really include resilience in your strategic planning?
Now, Kathleen, don't you do some risk assessments?
I do. Yeah. Yes. My resilience wheelhouse has continued to build as people's needs have. So taking all of this information and experience relative to the nervous system, and then being able to use the studies and the tools that are available to then look at and assess what's going on in an organization, and then provide the tools, right, to be able to build the resilience is definitely my passion.
So I think based on what we've heard today, right, there are some key indicators we may know as business leaders if our organization is struggling with some resilience or levels of productivity. And so by going through one of these assessments, that could help to clarify if that really is something that the business or organization is struggling with. And from there, implementing the tools and the resources to help set your team up for success moving into 2022 and making sure that's an important part of your strategic plan. So love that you brought this up, Kathleen. I do think it's something that a lot of organizations are going to have to look at, just based on that statistic of 60% of all Americans are not resilient. I mean, I think that impacts all of our businesses. So
absolutely.
So based on what we talked about today, Kathleen, what would be your call to action for change, or something that you would encourage business leaders to think through here in the next couple of weeks?
Well, first, take a look at where you're at, right? Understand what you're dealing with. So that means measuring that, of course. The second thing is just look at your current plans. Is resilience even really part of your strategy, or is it more kind of nice little fluff and buff? Yes, we're providing this because people are asking for it or we're supposed to, right? It's really understanding that it could be the cornerstone, it is the cornerstone of so many aspects that really fuel and help sustain your business. So be honest with yourself. Like, are we doing it for real? Or are we just kind of looking at it? And then get support. If you need support, there is support available. And then you're going to have the information you need to then move forward, knowing that you are now using resilience to your advantage, right? And to your team's advantage, and to really all your stakeholders, because it is one of those things that building resilience really positively impacts all stakeholders.
Great. Well, Kathleen, as we look to wrap up today's conversation, is there anything else you want to leave our audience with?
No, just ponder that.
Awesome. Well, Kathleen, thanks so much for challenging us today and for continuing or helping us to think through how we can go about enhancing our organizations through resilience. So, Kathleen, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Have a great day.